Yeah, you know what's funny? So when they first opened and I looked at it, it kind of reminded me of Moe's from The Simpsons. I don't know why, but it just because it's got kind of that retro vibe, and the letters are, again, kind of that retro feel.
Hmm.
So I don't know. That's kind of the vibe I picked up from the start.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to All Beer Inside quarantine editions of the episode. Joining me today via Zoom once again is Kyla, also known as beer.travel.food on Instagram. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to speak with us today. I'm more than appreciative of anybody who's willing to take time into their day to speak with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So as we've been doing, because the world's kind of in COVID mode, in a pandemic, once a century type of thing, we're going to share a virtual beer, though, because we get to do that. Let my audience know what you're drinking.
So tonight I'm actually drinking Creature Feature. I don't know if you can see that.
Yep.
So this is actually an IPA from Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's a brewery called Good Robot. So I'm originally from Nova Scotia. So East Coast all the way. And so I was excited to be able to get some of their beer up here in Ontario. This is one of my favorites. It's a super clean IPA. So yeah, that's what I'm drinking tonight. I decided to pop that open.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I like the sound of that. I went with Very Canadiana from Tuque Brew in Embern, Cabane
Nice.
Tuque. It is a maple wheat beer.
Oh,
This is the first time I've ever tried this. And, well, if you're a Canadian, you have maple in your beers. So
absolutely.
awesome.
Maple's actually like one of my favorite beer additives for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And we do a toast. Okay. Let's see if I can get this today. Nah. Ooh. Maple beer.
Mine's got lots of citrusy notes. Typical IPA.
This is a good wheat backbone with the maple up front. It's a very tasty beer, and you can't get more Canadian than it's Tuque or a Tuque. So,
Right,
or
exactly.
as Americans, I believe, call it a beanie. So,
Yeah,
awesome.
sure.
So, what brought you to beer Instagram? What's your beer story?
Oh boy. So it's an interesting story. So I started out drinking mainstream beer, believe it or not. I want to say, I guess, back in my university days. And then I met now my fiance, then boyfriend, I guess. And so he kind of introduced me to the craft beer world. And, he'd just say every now and then, try this, try this. And I'd be like, wow, this is so much better than my Bud Light, my Moosehead, and all of these different mainstreams. And then, so he's really into stout, porters, really the darker side of the beer. So for me, I gravitate more toward, pale ales, IPAs, things like that, right? So I kind of branched out from what he was kind of dishing me here, try this, and just kind of started to explore my own tastes and my own, really developing, I guess, my passion for craft beer from there. And so that's probably, I would say, where it all started. And so that would have been 2015. And then the beer Instagram kind of came, I would say, I really kind of started putting some effort into it, so to speak. I would say 2019, really when all of this mess started kind of happening with COVID. And I said, you know what? I need to find some positives here. I need to kind of recalibrate, I guess, and put my energy into something that makes sense, something that I enjoy doing, because my passions of going to breweries and meeting new people and all of those things were in travel, and things like that were all gone, so I had to shift my focus.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you do mention on your Instagram, you are all about beer, traveling, and food. And two of those came to an abrupt halt
Yes.
because the restaurant industry pretty much, I'm not 100% sure what Ontario's like, but here in Quebec, it was everything closes for 2 weeks. Now, you said your boyfriend or now fiance,
Yep.
brought you into the world of craft beer. Do you remember those couple of craft beer you're like, this is why I'm going to start drinking this?
Yeah. Yeah, there was definitely a couple. So Good Robot was actually one. Like I said, it was around 2015. This would have kind of transpired, and we would have been living in Halifax at that time in Nova Scotia. So Good Robot was definitely one where I said, wow, I read this description, I tasted the beer, and it tastes like what I just read. That's phenomenal, right? And so I would say they're probably the one that I kind of was opened up to the world on, in the world of craft beer, so to speak. We actually had our engagement pictures at Good Robot, and those are on my Instagram because I mean we're both such huge craft beer fans. We said, what better, where else would we go to have engagement photos? Right?
That's
Yeah.
awesome. I love hearing that. I've personally am single, but I know the person that I get involved with has to be into craft beer, or else there's really no point. So
Yeah, exactly.
that's great to hear. So Good Robot. Do you remember those specific? Because you said you're more into pale ales and IPAs. Do you remember those one or two very specific ones that you're like, this is it? These are the beers I want from now on.
Well, I mean, as you know, with craft beer, things change all the time, right? So 2015, I don't know if Creature Feature, which is what I'm drinking tonight, was one of those beers that were around at that time or not, to be honest with you. But it was definitely the lighter one. So probably lower IBU IPAs, pale ales, maybe a few lagers here and there. I've kind of grown out of lagers, I think, a little bit. I say grown out, but I like a little bit more heavy on the flavor now, I think. So they were definitely light. I don't know the names of them now, but for sure light beer.
Awesome. No,
Yeah.
that's it. I've mentioned this time and time again. One of my first craft beers was Strawberry Blonde from a local brew pub here in Montreal called Brewtopia.
Oh yeah, I've been there.
And that was like, beer can have flavor.
Yeah.
It's not drinking 40s with my friends in a back alley. What's going on here? So
Yeah, exactly.
it's amazing. And then it just grew from there. And I'm lucky enough in Montreal to have the Mondial de la Bière. You mentioned pre-show you're in Barrie, but you're pretty close to the GTA, reasonably close. So you have like all those festivals you can visit when it's safe, obviously. So it's just, it continues. It's really snowballs from there. Now there's 3 in the Montreal area that I go to almost every year. So
wow.
yeah, I love it. It's costly. It's a good thing I finally have a job where I can afford to do all 3 very easily and come home with way too much merch and way too many glasses and things like that. So
yeah, exactly. You run out of cupboard space eventually, right?
yeah, exactly. So what made you decide, I know they're your 3 passions, obviously, is beer, travel, food. What made you kind of pick that and not something like Kyla likes beer or Kyla likes to travel with beer for food? What made it's very nice and simple. I like it. It's very straightforward. What made you decide that?
That's exactly why, to be honest. Obviously I've seen lots of beer accounts and everyone is so unique and so creative with their name. And I really just wanted something simple that really just incorporates, listen, this is what I'm going to be posting. I'm going to be posting about beer and travel and food, really as simple as that, and that's honestly, that's why I just wanted simple, to the point. What you see is what you get.
It's perfect. I mean, our name started as a joke of another friend's web podcast where they were all wine aside. And I'm like, well, all beer, but beer belongs inside your body. So we'll be all beer inside, which we started as a joke. And we're trying to grow the brand every week by interviewing people like yourself and getting ourselves out there and, supporting each other so that, we get some of our viewers to follow you and you can maybe get some of your people to follow us. So that's why it's one big, great community. And if you notice some of my more recent episodes, I've been talking to the ladies of craft beer because I do believe this needs to be more diverse in every way possible. Very women forward, very persons of color, native. This is what, I feel the craft beer needs to be. So
all walks of life, there's a craft beer for everybody, right? And I feel the same. And I feel like ladies in craft beer specifically has really, really grown. I remember when I was looking at that, I couldn't really come across a whole lot going on, but there's just been so many accounts pop up over the last year. Just girls coming out and saying, I love craft beer too. Like, I'm going to join this bandwagon. I'm going to join this train. And so that's been really great.
When it comes to your Instagram, I love the concept when you do the single beers where you kind of have the breakdown where it's you describe why you're having the beer, and then the breakdown of the name, the style, your overall rating, which is out of 10 by 0.5s from what I'm seeing, and then crushability. What made you decide to have both ratings?
So when I kind of came up with, so if you creep, I guess, my previous posts on Instagram, when I would do a little bit of rating, I kind of played around with, what do I want to incorporate here? What do I really want to relay about this beer that I just drank? And that's when I kind of came up with this list that you'll see in my recent posts. And crushability was one of those things that there was a few beer I had when I just kind of looked into making a rating system. And, I said, well, overall, I'd give it this, but in reality, it is crushable. This is a crushable beer. This is for sure something I drink in the summer, poolside or something like that. And I need to relay that. How do I relay that? And I came up with crushability. And I feel like that was the best possible word I could use outside of my overall rating. And if you take a look, you'll see that they will come out with different numbers usually. Sometimes they're about the same, but I might rate a beer an 8, 9, 9.5 or something out of 10, but the crushability could be like a 3. Yeah. So I mean, that I think is the important point, is because they actually are two complete different ratings, right? So
yeah, 100%. I totally agree with that. It's the same thing. It's like, this 10% New England IPA is fantastic, but I'm not chugging a 10% beer. It's not happening, or I'm gonna pass out on my floor before I make it to my bed. Let's be realistic. But then there's your lagers. I'm a big fan of the crispy boys, as they call them now, which is I always try and find a lager at a new place, because lagers are just notoriously difficult to nail.
Yeah,
so
fair.
If a place nails a lager, most of your beers are probably going to be good. So it's like, it's tasty, it's crushable. A lot of places around my area are starting to do lighter crushable beers. I saw some of your fellow Instagrammers in the area are speaking about the Spearhead Light Lager, which I look forward to trying. So it's just, I love seeing these guys doing the lower ABV beers, the lower calorie beers for people who are like, if you want to be a little more health conscious, but still want taste, here you go.
Or the flip side of that, right? Maybe you're not, on the health conscious, but maybe you want to play a game of beer pong. Maybe you want to play a game of flip cup, but you still want to support local. You still want to support craft beer. You don't want to go out and buy a case of Bud Light. You'd rather stick with the craft beer industry. And I think that's part of that crushability as well. So, I mean, the overall rating that I put might be, a 5. Maybe the flavor isn't quite there. Maybe for whatever reason, it's just not, not doing it for me. But if the crushability is like an 8 out of 10, great. Pick that up instead of your Bud Light for a game of beer pong, flip cup, whatever drinking games you want to participate in. Yeah.
I desperately miss beer pong and drinking games with friends, even though I'm the age I am, and I probably shouldn't be doing that all the time. So
I miss it too. Not all the time, but just in the backyard. You have a backyard barbecue, have a few friends over, come up with a game of beer pong. Absolutely.
Yeah. Awesome. So you said you only really ramped up the Instagram in 2019 before everything kind of shut down. I'm guessing you've yet to do a collab, because I did notice that you had the Irish pubs listed as a link on your website. Have you done a collab with them, or you're just kind of associated with that Darcy McGee group?
Yeah, so that's my most recent collaboration for St. Patrick's Day. That was really fun. I got to shoot a lot of really cool content for them. So I would say that was my most recent collab. But yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just getting into things on my end. So not a whole lot on the collab front right now. But I'm starting to go that way. This was probably definitely my biggest, most memorable collaboration. So that's exciting for me. It's kind of a nice step to know, oh, hey, like, I'm getting noticed a little bit, right? In this crazy sea of Instagrammers.
Yeah. 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 No, it's great, and I don't know if you've seen it, but there's some other lady influencers here in Montreal who have been brewing beer locally
Yep.
with a brewery. Could you see yourself doing that? Do you have any maybe top 3 or 4 people, or we'll say top 2 or 3 that obviously good robot? That's I'm sure it's 100%. You got to go back to home, brew a beer, and then drag a couple of flats back to share with friends. But
Right.
are there maybe some local, obviously, maybe Barrie, GTA, Mississauga type areas where you'd love to kind of collab with some of the guys or ladies of beer and make your own?
Yeah. So I would say there's definitely, well, I mean, we've got some awesome breweries here. One of my go-tos, and if I guess anyone who follows me on Instagram will know, I'm a big fan of Flying Monkeys, which is in Barrie. They've got amazing beer, really cool vibe. I love everything about it. So of course they'd be on my list for sure. One that is in Whitby, Ontario, which is in the Durham region, about not too far from Toronto, I guess, definitely within the hour. It's Five Paddles, it's called. They do awesome beer. Very much one of those situations where you read the description and you're going to taste all of those flavors in this beer. I would say they're probably most well known for stout porters on the darker side. But they have the one that kind of comes to mind is they've got a coconut cream ale, and I love coconut cream pie, and it's one of my go-tos when I visit there. So they definitely be on my list. The other would probably be Common Good. So I went to Common Good, would have been, I guess, a couple of weeks ago now, and they were able to show me around the brewery and take me on a little behind the scenes tour, kind of under the radar, which was exciting. I was happy to be back in a brewery again for one. Kind of behind the scenes a little bit. And they are one of the breweries that they do have a good lager. And as you recognize, the lager that's a tough one to nail. It's a tough style, and I think it's probably because it's so light and it's so easy to pick up all of those off flavors in the beer versus a stout where you can basically hide anything you want in the beer. So they'd probably be on my list as well. It's super great people. They have a really cool setup, and some really interesting beers. So they'd be on my list too, to be honest.
Very cool. So since you get to go to Flying Monkeys a bunch, have you met Andrea and or Peter yet? The owners? Okay.
I haven't. No. And I don't know if I'm usually there on the weekend, so I don't believe that they'd be there anyway. I think they're usually, more in the week, but hopefully soon. I'm hoping that once things start to open up a little bit and it's more, accessible to go meet people, I'd like to, do a little bit more behind the scenes tours and meet with some of the brewers and, kind of get into that a little bit more too, because unfortunately when I started, kind of deep diving into the Insta world, things were shutting down as I was kind of moving along. So.
Yeah, I don't even think we were 20 episodes deep before the world shut down on us. 21. And then we had to, start doing Zoom interviews. And then we had a little bit of a lull in September. So thankfully, Flying Monkeys, because of Craft Beer Bailey. I don't know if you met Mary Bailey.
Yeah.
So I
haven't met her, but I have her on Instagram.
Okay, yeah. So she's one of the representatives for Flying Monkeys, and she said, "Yeah, contact them; they'll totally do it." And we were lucky enough on our way back from Toronto, drive up to Barrie, Flying Monkeys, do the interview.
Okay.
So you could check out the interview if you ever want to. It's episode 50 on the show.
Yeah.
Try some wild beers, like your concept where you write up of the industrial vibe, but it's weird and kind of cool. Yeah. Those are the exact same things I said. I loved how almost every single chair had some writing on it. Like the steps had stuff written. It's a wild, like sensory overload. Yeah, it's so great. So, And I'm a huge fan of the triple chocolate or the chocolate manifesto. It's
the manifesto. Mm-hmm.
It's one of the best stouts I've ever had. So
yeah,
it's great.
One of the things that I find too is, well, I think really the Ontario craft beer scene in general, but in terms of pricing, the prices are just, they're good prices for the most part in comparison. So coming from Nova Scotia, for a can like this, I mean, this can specifically, I believe is maybe $4.50, $5 for this one can. I mean, I'd probably find that here for $3.50, something like that in Ontario. So it's just crazy how the prices change across Canada for beer too. I mean, that's probably a topic in itself.
Yeah. No, there's a local place they're making some wild double, triple IPAs. During this, they had opened 2 years ago, and they're a walk from me, which is great because I can go there, get drunk, and not have to worry about, it'll take me more than 40 minutes to walk home since I've been having double and triple IPAs all night, but they're like $8 a can. So it's a bit of a kick in the butt, but it's not like I've been doing anything outside of thankfully speaking with people and working from home. So it's can't really complain. Yeah.
What's $8 here and there,
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of kind of the working from home, do you or can you see yourself home brewing at any point?
So I've tried to home brew actually. So my fiance and I tried to brew a honey brown ale is the very first thing we tried to brew because we figured, all right, it's not going to be as heavy as a stout, but it's still going to be dark enough that if we have any off flavors, it should kind of help to cover them up a little bit for our first try. And it just absolutely did not turn out at all, like not drinkable. Like it was just, you dump that.
Yeah.
So,
that's unfortunate.
That was disappointing. So it's funny. So just before the pandemic kind of hit, we were supposed to start a home brewing class actually in Ontario in April. And we were all set up. It was like, I think over 6 weeks, and you go once a week. And by the end of it, you have your beer brewed. So they actually walk you through all of the kind of breaking down all the different pieces of brewing, and then actually guiding you through your first brew. So we were really excited to be able to do that. And then of course it got canceled. So yeah. I'm hoping that will be available again so that we can maybe try that and give it another whirl.
Yeah. I've always said if I were to I don't homebrew in any way. I think just the cleanup is way too tedious, and I'm not, I'm not direct enough to make sure it's 100% clean. So I know there's going to be that one part that I miss that presents an off flavor, and all my friends are going to be like, "You made the worst beer ever," and then I would just never it would mentally break me. So I couldn't. I would be more of a head of house owner type of a brewery where I would tell my brewer what I want in my beer and go and make it and do the rest. And this is why I pay you way too much money. Exactly. I'm more of that part. And speaking of the home brew classes, that's something that my own brew pub I would do is I would have kind of a mug club, and where my regulars I would have my brewer teach them brewing. So I always thought that was a really cool concept to have at a brewery.
Yeah, it is really neat for sure. So, and I think it's the only place I've come across in Ontario that does that. And it's actually, I can't remember the name right off, but it's put on by one of the brew supply shops actually. So that was interesting. I guess it's smart, right? Because then you'll be a repeat customer. If you know how to brew, then you'll get more customers. So it's quite smart actually.
Yeah, no, it's incredibly smart. Okay, so you mentioned you're originally from Halifax, but you're in Barrie now. Now, what are some kind of local haunts they suggest if somebody were visiting either area? Let's say 3 from each. Okay. I visit Halifax. Your list is carp. You have to hit these 3. I come up to Barrie, obviously outside of Flying Monkeys. 3 sure. more in the Barrie area that you definitely suggest I try.
Yeah, so I mean, Barrie's not that big. So I mean, Flying Monkeys has to be on my list, but I would say in the general area of Barrie, let's maybe say within an hour, I guess. So one that's actually new, that's kind of between, I guess, Barrie and Aurelia would be Quail. It's Quail okay. Brewery, and it's absolutely stunning. So when you have a minute, look it up on Instagram. it's a farm. So what's interesting about quail is they grow their hops themselves. And when you drive up, it looks like a renovated old farmhouse. And I don't actually know if it was a renovated old farmhouse because it's stunning inside and out. It's absolutely great. And they have like fun games outside. They've got fire pits. They've got heat lamps as well for the colder weather. And you can just take your beer and just kind of stroll around to see the hops. So it's kind of like a winery for a beer lover. You know what I mean? It's quite good. And the people are fantastic. The owners. I haven't, I guess, formally met them, but I've kind of picked up on after my maybe fourth or fifth visit there. I kind of picked up who's who. And the food's fantastic, and they just have great experimental beers, and it's more of a farm fresh, right? Because they're growing their ingredients. They're growing the hops, and they're growing some of the fruit that they're using in their beer. So really quite interesting. 100% that one. I would say one of the others, and that's a bit far out. I'm trying to think right off the top of my head. The Flying Monkeys is probably just my go-to in Barrie. We recently had Beer Town open. Now it's not a brewery itself, but it's more of a tap room. So they have a lot of Ontario breweries on tap, and I think they have like definitely over 100 different taps of beer. Like it's quite extensive. And they also have a lot of beer that you can buy and bring home with you too. So they have a pretty good bottle shop going too. And so they just opened. That's probably the other collab that I did that's most memorable. I actually was invited to their pre-opening event, which was I want to say August, but I feel like it was a bit later than that, maybe October. But anyway, within the last few months, and it was fantastic. So I would definitely say, if you can hit Beer Town up for sure, then you get to incorporate, really a large number of Ontario breweries, plus some of the local ones, plus support, this new local pub that's opened, right? So I would say those three would, really Fly Monkey, Quail, and then, hit up the Beer Town for sure.
Is Beer Town kind of like the outside is like almost a 50s motif?
Yeah, you know what's funny? So when they first opened and I looked at it, it kind of reminded me of Moe's from The Simpsons. I don't know why, but because it's got kind of that retro vibe, and the letters are, again, kind of that retro feel. So I don't know. That's kind of the vibe I picked up from the start, but it's really a great place, and they have a really big kind of patio area too, which surprisingly has been open in the last month, even in -5, -10, because what are businesses to do, right? So definitely those three in the general Barrie vicinity, I would say. The other one that I just remembered now would be Red Line, is also in Barrie. So it's called Red Line. They've got some really good beers as well, and so their vibe is I guess like car related. So they've got a beer called like Check Engine and one called Clutch, things like that, right? So that's pretty cool. And they have a really good wing night. I'm a vegetarian, but my fiance likes chicken wings, and they've got every Wednesday and Thursday they've got I can't remember the price right off the top of my head, but it's like a pound of wings and a beer for definitely a reasonable price. I want to say like $8 to $10, something like that. Super good. So definitely I would say those 4, I guess.
Very cool. And you're back in your hometown outside of, obviously you're a huge proponent of Good Robot as well, like you are Flying Monkeys. But what are some other in Halifax that you'd suggest to try out?
So Nova Scotia in general is underrated for craft beer, and I would highly suggest anyone who is a craft beer fan and can make their way to Nova Scotia do it, because they've got just an obscene amount of craft breweries per capita, or for, I guess, space, right? It's such a small province. It's crazy. I don't know if you'd go wrong with any, but Two Crows is definitely one I would recommend. It's in definitely, downtown Halifax area. They do great beers all around. They're not too far from Good Robot, so you could kind of hit the two of those. Another one would be Garrison, which is right down by the waterfront. It's got an awesome location because of that. Because I'm such a great craft beer fan, my dog is actually named Garrison from the brewery. So that would definitely be another in the Halifax area. I'm just trying to think if there's one in my actual hometown is about an hour outside of Halifax. And they just recently opened a brewery in the last few years called Church Brewing. Okay. And it's in an old church. I wish I brought in my bottle opener because that it's crazy. It looks like an old church key. It's about this long. And I actually didn't even know it was a bottle opener. I just thought they gave me this old looking key. I'm like, well, that's fantastic. What do I do with this? And they're like, oh, it's a bottle opener. Yeah. Oh, perfect. Of course it is. So that would definitely be the other one I'd recommend in that area.
I like to bring up beercations. Obviously, you came to Montreal. You said the scene wasn't that. You didn't feel it was that big when you came.
Yeah, and it made I am Canadian, but my French is horrible, just awful. So it could have been too that I wasn't really looking for the right things. I may need a proper guide next time I go.
I mean, I'm not 100% bilingual, but I can get by. So if you and the fiance are in the area, you got my Instagram, so feel free to message me. I know where to send you. Awesome. But when it does come down to future beercations, when it's safe to travel again, when we're all vaccinated, when it's safe to get on a plane, 2 beercations you want to go on. One, very much, I only have so much money to spend as a realistic vacation. And let's say you won the lottery and had unlimited funds, the super beercation.
So it's funny because I had kind of a super beercation plan for my honeymoon. And so I was supposed to get married in August 2020, had to postpone the wedding, of course, because of the pandemic. But we were supposed to actually spend a month in Europe, just traveling Europe for the purpose of craft beer. So we were going to hit Belgium, Germany. We were going to hit Switzerland, I think, as well. Some that aren't really well known for beer because I want to know what they're doing, right? I want to know what beer they've got. Are they hiding it and it's just that fantastic, or is it just really not a craft beer scene, right? So we had kind of a full Euro trip planned. So I'm disappointed about that, but and then of course Ireland, UK, we're kind of on that record. But I guess my ultimate would probably be just Europe, a full Euro trip, just every country in Europe, being able to actually stay and go to some of the well-known breweries in each place. That would be fantastic. Obviously a dream. Because it's not cheap, and when you're working full time, I mean, no one has that much vacation, right? Yeah, that would be my ultimate.
Yeah, I love that concept. It's just, let's, go crazy, as they say, balls to the wall. Start in England and make your way out to the Czech Republic and then your way back or something like that. Right. Awesome. And then kind of a realistic beercation where you and the fiance hop in a car, you can drive, let's say 6 to 8 hours and do an extended week or weekend somewhere. Where could you see yourself going, or even just a quick flight somewhere?
So the answer to this, hands down, would be Chicago. I've never been to Chicago, and some of the people I follow on Instagram are in the Chicago area, and I always see stuff that they're posting, and just how diverse and how many breweries there are in Chicago. So that would hands down be one. It's not too far away from Ontario. It's definitely a doable trip you could do in an extended weekend, right? The other one that we kind of had planned a little bit as well in the last year was Ohio, which is crazy because who just decides they're going to go to Ohio? Did you go there?
So it's 11 years ago, but for every second year, myself and a group of the guys, we go on a sports vacation.
Nice.
And so our first ever one, we started in Cleveland. It was LeBron's first last year before he went to Miami. He had Shaq, he had that. So we saw the Cavaliers, and then we made our way up to Buffalo. So we only spent one time in Ohio. I wasn't as gigantic into craft beer as I was now. But there's this place, it was across from the stadium next to our hotel, because our hotel is near the stadium, called the Winking Lizard. And they have the World Beer Tour, and they have 250 different beers in the world to try.
No.
Yeah. And they actually have a thing like a passport. And if you can try all 250 in the year, you get like a mug and a t-shirt.
Wow.
Yeah. And I laughed because I looked at my Untappd. Even last year during the pandemic, Untappd is my Pokemon Go.
Yeah.
And I tried 700 new beers during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, if I had a year and I lived in that city, I would beat it probably in 3 months.
Absolutely. So, or you have a few different t-shirts, right?
Yeah, exactly. But so that was cool. And then coming on 3 years now, because of podcasting, we actually met this gentleman. His name's Justin Summers. He has a local professional wrestling podcast. And we were doing a movie podcast together, and we actually made our way down for The Disaster Artist.
Oh, neat.
And a viewing of The Room. So we were in Ohio, and then myself and my friend, we added a bunch of stuff on. We went to see a football game. We went to do this. We went to do that. But I only hit one craft brewery, and it was their Hofbrauhaus, which is their big German place, because we were just so busy.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, and then I'm starting to look, and I'm like, we missed this craft brewery. We missed this craft brewery. We missed this craft brewery. Oh, there was these 3 next to the stadium. I'm like, ugh. So, but yeah, no, just going to Ohio is kind of out of the question. Like, I mean, you're a lot closer. Toronto wise, you do have the Great Lake in the way, but for us, it's like a 10.5-hour drive. So,
it's far. Yeah. I don't think it'd be a long drive for me. And the craft beer scene there does look pretty good. I also like wine. It's not my first love, but I'll go to a winery here and there too. And it looks like they have a lot of wineries in that area. So definitely still on my list, and definitely doable in a long weekend. So stay tuned for that one.
For sure. I mean, we did try some fantastic, because we did get together with our friend Justin, and we did try. He brought out some Ohio beers for us to try, and there was some fantastic beers. We tried a Christmas beer from Great Lakes Brewery, which is funny because there's Great Lakes Brewery on this side of like Lake Ontario, and then there's Great Lakes Brewery on this side of Lake Ontario in Canada. So, and their Christmas beer is, it tasted like Christmas. It was great. So.
Yeah,
it's definitely one to try if you ever have a chance. It's Great Lakes Brewery. And it's funny because they do have, I think their red is called like Lake of Fire, because they had a river that actually caught on fire. So, which is always interesting. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever been to Vermont. I'd highly suggest you check out Vermont if you ever had a chance.
I have.
So,
yeah, I've been to Vermont. Tried a couple craft breweries. I'm trying to remember the name, but it's in the middle of absolutely nowhere. Like we drove there to go. So it was twofold. We drove there because it was a craft brewery, but it also had this, I don't know if it was like the world's biggest hot tub or something, but it was like this giant hot tub. And if you go there to the craft brewery, you can use the hot tub. Oh. So I was like, of course we're going to drive. It was like 2 hours out of the way, but I'm like, who cares? We're not going to be here, again for a long time. Let's go. Let's just go.
All right. When the
it was fantastic.
Yeah, when the border opens again, we're gonna have to definitely check that out. Like normally, I hear whenever somebody goes to Vermont for craft beer, it's Hill Farmstead. That's where you go. And the first ever time I went, the fact that I had to wait almost an hour to drink a beer and wait almost another hour to buy beer, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm never gonna do this again. Somebody's like, dude, I've waited 3 hours. I'm like, nope. Not in. It was also like sunny, and I didn't have any sunscreen on, and I'm bald, so that doesn't help. It's so hot, and I'm like, but speaking of kind of where you're supposed to, the barn motif, they actually have a place called Red Barn Brewing, and it is a converted barn.
Nice.
So I love that stuff too, where you take something old like a garage, a bicycle shop, a church, a barn, turn into a brewery. I love it. So
can't go wrong, right?
Yeah. It's I loved. I mean, you could tell that it looked like it was probably a bank or something where Flying Monkeys is. It obviously used to be something else before it was Flying Monkeys. So it's like I like the concept that you're taking something old and putting something new in it, but keeping the old at the same time. So
Well, even like for Flying Monkeys, I don't know if you got to see it when you were there, but they have a food elevator. So the kitchen is actually like it's not on the same floor.
Mhm.
So they have this little elevator. There's a big elevator, but there's a tiny one that has a little tiny door, and it comes down, and you open this little door, and there's the food. That's crazy to me, but
Yeah,
I
as the
love
show, we were lucky enough to get to tour. We got to look inside the brewery. So if you ever get the tour, you get to see the awesome robot arm that packs beer. So
it.
yeah, and it
Love
looks
it.
like the robot arm from the Canadian arm on the International Space Station. It looks like that.
Oh, nice.
So
Yeah, that's
as
really
yeah, as Canadians, we're just like, that's awesome. So,
yeah. Exactly.
yeah,
We're so
40-year-old male freaking out about the nerdiness of a robot arm packing beer. So
yeah.
okay, this has been great. I honestly have no other questions for you. Like I'm going to suggest everybody should definitely check out your Instagram. Kind of, you already mentioned everything you're going to do, so let everybody know where they can find you.
So Instagram is I would say my one and only love. You can find me at beer.travel.food on Instagram. I do have a Facebook connected, but I do absolutely nothing with it. So find me on Instagram and slide into my DMs. I love to meet new people, and definitely let me know your favorite breweries because I'm always traveling.
Yep. Yeah. And when it's safe to, like I said, you and the fiance, if you want to make your way out here and meet the internet stranger you spoke with today and enjoy some craft beer, let me know. So
Absolutely.
and you can meet the background guy and you'd be like, wait a second. So,
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'll definitely let you know.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon.
Yeah. As for us, allbeerinside.com is the website. At All Beer Inside is all the social media. If you want to follow just me, I'm at Killer Carpe Diem on all social media as well. And as I say at the end of all episodes, drink craft, not crap.